I'm Dr. LuLu, and we're going to be talking today about autoimmune disease and hormonal health. So, what are we going to be learning in this workshop today? So, one, what is an autoimmune disease? I think that's important to establish. Two, how hormonal imbalance impacts the immune system. And three, ways to jumpstart your hormone and immune system. So, those are going to be our main themes as we're working through this evening. First of all, women have an increased risk of immune disorders. So it's always on my radar, and it should be if you're a female as well, that you are thinking about, okay, if I have a lot of, when it comes to autoimmune disease, it can be a lot of unknown symptoms, or not, I wouldn't say unknown, symptoms that are a wide variety that could cross into different aspects of disease. So they can be hard to diagnose. We do have some lab tests that we can do to run, but then those aren't always definitive. And then also, like I said, you can have a lot of crossover. So some diseases, autoimmune diseases, have great testing, like thyroid diseases, where we can really see if there's autoimmune antibodies that are being activated, which is showing that the body is in an autoimmune state. So again, remember that women have an increased risk of immune disorders. So that's number one. And women have a higher risk of developing an autoimmune condition than men. It's estimated that over 30 million women, which is a lot in the United States, are living with an autoimmune condition, whether that it is a known autoimmune condition, a suspected autoimmune condition, or maybe it is an undiagnosed autoimmune condition. So those could be three aspects, right? So since autoimmune disease is grossly misdiagnosed, the numbers are most highly elevated, much more likely higher than estimated. So that's like an estimated 30 million, but it's probably much, much higher because it's improperly diagnosed and dismissed, or undiagnosed altogether. So first of all, what is autoimmunity? And when you think of that, like autoimmunity itself, we're having basically this fight against our own immune system, which seems so, unfair. I know a lot of my patients feel that way. They're like, why me? Why is this happening? So autoimmunity is a state of immune confusion, right? Your immune system and your body is in a state of confusion, and the immune system attacks yourself, right? So that's not a good place to be. So this attack causes severe inflammation and damage in many different levels. It can be organ damage. It can be visual damage, like of the skin, like psoriasis. It can be thyroid problems where you'll see swelling in the throat. There's lots of different things that can be visual, but then there's also a lot of things that happen internally, which aren't visual as well. So regardless of what type of autoimmune condition you might be experiencing or think you have, the root cause is the same. It's a dysregulated immune system. So with treatment, or when we're looking at how do we come about helping a person with autoimmune disease, the treatments are individualized, but they also have kind of that same theme where we're working on the immune system. So there are over 100 identified autoimmune diseases, with the most common being Hashimoto's thyroiditis. I work with many patients with Hashimoto's. It's one of the most, I would say we're in a thyroid epidemic. Many of my patients have thyroid problems. They're being diagnosed or misdiagnosed is really common as well. And we're seeing so many women actually given thyroid medication by practitioners, or self-medicating when the thyroid is not a problem, and then it goes into a problem space. So Graves' disease, this is an autoimmunity. It's the leading cause of all thyroid disease because both hypothyroidism and hyperthyroidism. So autoimmunity is both of those together, right? So Hashimoto's is an autoimmune disease of the thyroid, as well as Graves' disease, and also type 1 diabetes, lupus, very common, rheumatoid arthritis. I see a lot of patients with this as well, and multiple sclerosis, or MS. So those are just a few, right? I said there's 100 that are identified, but there's many more that haven't been identified as well. So some common signs of autoimmunity. Now, if you're thinking to yourself, okay, maybe I do have an autoimmune disease. I've tried lots of different things. Nothing's working. Why not? Why can't I feel better? That's the main thing. I think that a lot of questions come up. Why can't I feel better? So here are some common symptoms that I see with patients when it comes to autoimmunity. One, achy muscles, like fibromyalgia, for example. Fatigue, I think that's probably number one, but fatigue is very broad, right? A lot of diseases have fatigue because your body is trying to heal itself. It's using all of that energy to heal. Hair loss is super common, especially with thyroid disease. Low grade fever. So this is a really interesting one. You'll be experiencing a really low fever. You'll have night sweats. So this can be a common sign of autoimmunity or autoimmune disease, I should say. Also, I'll see patients that will have a very low temperature. So on that other scale. So not having a low grade fever, but having below normal. That can also be a sign of an autoimmune disease. Numbness and tingling in the hands and feet, skin rashes. I see a lot of patients with skin rashes, especially psoriasis is a good example of that, because your body, it's challenging when you have this thing on the outside, or this condition, I should say, on the outside of your system, but the inside of your system is fighting itself, right? But showing up on the outside. Swelling and redness, this can be of the joints or of the skin, especially of the face. Trouble concentrating, so brain fog, for example, and many more. As you can see from even just those, they're wide and varied. So again, like I said, it can be hard to diagnose. So what causes autoimmunity, right? You're like, why did this particularly happen? According to research, there's three kind of main aspects that cause autoimmune disease, and I'm going to go into those today. So one is genetics, two is endogenous factors, and three is environmental. So these are the three main ones that have been researched. But of course, there's all kinds of different other ones that haven't been studied, because not everything has been studied for sure. So let's talk about genetics. As I mentioned, or if I didn't mention, if you didn't hear me, if you're tuning in later, I love genetics. I work with a lot of patients with genetics because it gives us this inside blueprint of what's going on in their body and can give them a lot of information in a genetic analysis, especially when it comes to autoimmune disease. So for autoimmunity to express, researchers believe there must be a genetic predisposition. That's food for thought, right? Did it come through your genetic line? Was, for an example, many families I'll see that have hypothyroidism or thyroid problems, it'll be carried down, especially through the women. Like a common patient will say, I have thyroid disease and my mom does, my sister does, my aunt does, my grandmother does. So that's really interesting. And we're going to talk about that emotional component this evening and why that might be coming through the DNA line. So we cannot do anything about our genetics. I think that's a quote unquote, right? So we're seeing now, and I've seen in a lot of studies, that we can shift, especially when it comes to epigenetics, which is everything in our environment that's affecting our genetics. And while we can't do anything necessarily, maybe that from a scientific standpoint, right, as that has been researched for shifting the DNA, research suggests that genetics alone is not enough, right? So you have to shift something with the DNA from epigenetics, everything you're doing with lifestyle and your environment, everything you're eating, every exercise, sleep, mindset, water. So it's not just I'm glad, but there's not like a pill you can take to shift your genetics. It is, the DNA is in deep within each cell and also within all the aspects within the cell. So it can be a complicated system. And triggers can be internal. So those genes then are triggered by different things: stress, hormones, hormonal imbalance specifically, that triggers a big shift in the DNA, especially the mitochondrial DNA. So the mitochondria is our powerhouse of the cell. And when that particular aspect of the cell that gives us energy is damaged, or the DNA of the mitochondria is damaged, we're going to see a decrease in energy. So that's a big one I see in patients. And also environmental exposure changes our genetics. That's the epigenetic factor from outside toxins or viruses like the Epstein-Barr virus. So endogenous factors. So what are endogenous factors? This means having an internal course or origin. So I have endogenous and exogenous. So endogenous examples are like for aging, intestinal permeability, aka leaky gut, endocrine changes, such as those that occur during pregnancy, postpartum, and menopause. So those are the three main phases as women where we have a change in our hormones that can, I would say, ignite an autoimmune disease if they are not at balance during those, especially during those phases, right? You'll say, I would also put into that the teenage years, right? When the hormones start, and a lot of women are put onto birth control at a very early age, and that can shift the hormones and shift them out of balance quickly. That can ignite an autoimmune disease later on. So without even realizing it, we are exposed to thousands of toxins every single day, right? They're all around us. Things we eat in our environment. We can't live in a bubble. We have to live our lives. And they can be hidden in cleaning products, fragrances, and even the foods we eat. Of course, there's also the obvious ones, right? Such as air pollution. There's some areas of the world that are much more polluted than others. And those particular toxins can interfere with thyroid hormones, thyroid hormone production at various levels. So some toxins affect the liver. So the liver makes our hormone, well, it makes cholesterol, which then helps the body to make hormones. And then the toxins in the environment will affect the liver's ability to metabolize female hormones and thyroid hormones specifically. And others directly affect the thyroid gland or other hormones in the ovary specifically, and the adrenal system. So the adrenal system has a lot that it works with, but one of it does have an aspect when it comes to the female hormones and is greatly affected by toxins. So by encountering so many of these toxins daily, right, in our environment, we can't control, but we can control our daily detox, or we can manage it, I would say would be a better word, not controlling. But our bodies have a hard time detoxifying them fast enough. It's just because of the world that we live in. So we have to do more daily toxin work, so to speak. And over time, these damaging things in our environment, the epigenetic factors, the toxins, they add up like an onion, adding layers and layers onto the system that can be damaging over time. And it's like a toxic buildup. And that's what when we really see that autoimmune disease come into play, because so many different levels are then affected. It's not just one specific organ that's affected with autoimmune disease. Usually it's many different factors and layers. Looking at some of the basic things in your environment, the water you drink, the food you eat, eating or organic and non-GMO as much as possible, replacing any toxic chemicals in your cleaning supplies, toxic fragrances and cosmetics with natural ones. Those are all really important to look at when it comes to autoimmune disease. So let's talk a little bit about some more of the environmental factors that can come into play. I'm just going to see. There's a question. Okay, great. I'll get to that, Kayla. At the end, I'm going to be answering all questions at the end, so don't worry about that. So environmental factors. So we have our endocrine disrupting toxins, like I mentioned, household, beauty care, and food. Those are the major ones. Also, we have infections, viral and bacterial. So these can, what's a good word to describe it? Stick onto the cell. They leave an imprint on the cell. So even like pharmaceuticals leave an imprint. And so when we have an infection, it can sometimes go dormant, like EBV, Epstein-Barr virus, and then be reactivated because it has become dormant and hasn't been flushed out of the system properly. So for example, if I'm doing an autoimmune disease panel with labs and looking at something that a patient might be suffering from, or we're trying to be the detectives and figure out what's going on, I'll put an EBV or virus panel in there. EBV is Epstein-Barr virus. It comes from mono. And a lot of times we'll see these underlying conditions that are then surfacing. So that could be causing the autoimmune disease or underlying fatigue. So infections, like I mentioned, stress. So I'm talking about prolonged chronic stress. And we have been, as a society, even before the pandemic started, right? Under a lot of stress. Then with the pandemic, we've pushed ourselves into the state of chronic stress because of the environment that's been created. Some people have chosen to create less stress because of their awareness, but then other people have been pushed into different types of stress because they couldn't control. I have seen more autoimmune disease come on the radar lately because of that, or also a lot of adrenal dysfunction, thyroid disease, because people have been pushing themselves into a chronic state of stress over time, and it accumulates. If you have a little bit of stress, you can handle and manage. But then if you have all these different factors, let's say you had your family environment, you had your financial environment, you had your work environment, you had your health, all those things together can then accumulate, or like an onion, have those layers. And then what happens is then we can have that stress causing the autoimmune disease. And it's been studied that under chronic states of stress, our immune system is depleted. It doesn't function as well. So trauma, especially childhood trauma, can activate, and that's an environmental factor, can contribute and activate an autoimmune disease. And then certain medications. So pharmaceuticals don't always play the nice role in our body. Like I said, they have an imprint, they have a place, but when it comes to autoimmune disease, they don't really have a place. They don't help the immune system to be reignited in a way that is healing. So there's not a lot of solutions from the typical allopathic model in relationship to autoimmune disease. That's why a lot of people turn to alternative medicine, because it's multifaceted, right? Like I mentioned. So that it can't be just one thing, and your body is not a quick fix, right? If an autoimmune disease has developed, it is developed over a long period of time, and your body needs to have that time to then recover. Okay, so let's talk about the hormone immune connection, right? The HIC. So let's just start with the basics. So what are hormones? So hormones are special chemical messengers, right? They're communicating throughout the body, communicating with the adrenal system, communicating with the thyroid system, communicating with the nervous system, the sympathetic and the parasympathetic. Are always communicating throughout the body, the gut-brain connection. So there's this communication that is created in the endocrine glands, and these messengers throughout the body, right? They control most major bodily functions. So that's part of their job, from simple basic needs to complete complex systems. And the hormonal system is not a simple system. It is multifaceted and complex. The HPA axis, which is the hypothalamus, anterior pituitary, and adrenal axis, it is a feedback system which is telling your body to do specific things. It's very complicated. And that system can easily be thrown out of balance because it's doing all these different things at once, which then can trigger an autoimmune disease. And even these complex systems, especially reproduction, and also the emotional side of things, right? The emotions, the mood, and understanding the major hormones helps us to understand helps us to feel empowered when it comes to choosing how we want to manage our stress. Or not manage, but I would say, managing our stress, managing our hormones, figuring out which hormones are out of balance is a great way to describe it. So there's really clear evidence, so a lot of evidence-based medicine for the role of female sex hormones in immune disturbances. And it's been studied, especially in autoimmune disease. And as I mentioned before, remember, women are more prone to have autoimmune disease, and this is part of those studies. So we know women go through at least two significant endocrine shifts during their lifetime: puberty and menopause. Like I mentioned, those are those two major ones. And then also there are many other shifts that occur, such as pregnancy and breastfeeding. And in women, these hormonal shifts exert significant effects on the immune system because we're having this huge hormone shift in the body. It's activating different parts of the body, different parts of the brain, and it can shift the body's susceptibility to autoimmune diseases because it's in this compromised state. And that's not true for everyone, but I'm just giving you an example of how the hormones will see that shift. So hormone imbalance. So again, like I mentioned, many of the products that we use affect our hormones. And that is it's because they have an estrogen-like chemical. These are called xenoestrogens. And these chemicals are found again in many cosmetics, fragrances, plastic containers, and these xenoestrogens are pro-inflammatory, meaning that they are increasing inflammation in the body, so we have in our body, we have immune cells. If you have, let's say, for instance, you cut yourself, your body is going to send immune cells to that area to heal it, right? It's a natural response. We want to have an immune response. But when we go into a pro-inflammatory state, those immune cells do not turn off. They are, you could say they are excited, right? The message being given is to go to the scene over and over again, like a broken kind of like tape loop. And so xenoestrogens play a role in this, increasing this inflammation and in the development of autoimmune disease because they affect the immune cells. Does that make sense? And so even natural estrogen can trigger autoimmune disease in some women who have more of the pro-inflammatory estrogen type. So it's always good to have when you're thinking like, okay, I might have an autoimmune disease, or maybe it's already been established. I always want to do a hormone panel to see how are your female hormones, your reproductive hormones, are they affecting your body's inflammatory response, especially cortisol, which is also one of our inflammatory hormones. So many products that we use again in our everyday life contain synthetic estrogen like chemicals known as xenoestrogens. And these chemicals are found in our cosmetics, our fragrances, and the plastic containers. So again, what I suggest is like looking through your stuff in your house, pulling things out, especially if you are having an autoimmune disease currently or suspecting you have one. You want to limit these estrogens or reduce them completely from your body and environment. That can really be a trigger. And again, the genetic susceptibility. So I talked about genetics playing that role there. So when a woman goes through a hormonal transition, right? Like I talked about puberty, pregnancy, menopause, those are our biggies. You might go through that transition without any problems. And so what I usually see is if there's been one kind of problem, let's say you had a lot of problems during puberty, hormonal imbalance, a lot of bleeding, a lot of irregularity, then sometimes I'll see that you'll have more of a predisposition, or a small percentage of those women will emerge with a heightened risk of developing autoimmune disease because they already had this aspect of their life that was in turmoil, so to speak, from that hormonal perspective. So this is really likely due to that genetic susceptibility and environmental influence. All of those things come into play. So as women, these interactions between the endocrine system, all of those hormones in our endocrine glands, such as estrogens and androgens and immune responses, especially with cortisol. Cortisol is our stress hormone. And in spite of all these, autoimmunity is rarely discussed as a women's health issue, which I find very disheartening. We have to look at it from that hormonal perspective. And so the other aspect is we're in, as I mentioned, this stress state. So I wanted to talk a little bit more about that. So your immune system is strongly affected by stress, right? And so many studies have shown that when we're in a stressful environment, the ability of the immune system to respond is decreased, or the other side of the coin is that the immune system is in a heightened state, leading to an autoimmune disease. So many of us are feeling overstressed right now, way too often. Too many triggers, like I mentioned, all those different aspects. And this chronic stress, so I'm not talking about just like acute stress, like maybe you had a quick accident or something like that and you're recovering. I'm talking about overlaying chronic stress, right? Where that accumulation of stress has occurred. And this chronic stress is causing us to way more damage over time than to just one system. Many systems are affected, especially the thyroid system, because of the adrenal system is hand in hand, a partner, so to speak, with the thyroid. And when we're in that state of cortisol surge, when we're in a state of stress, it's going to affect the thyroid system and other inflammatory systems in the body. So when we feel stressed, the adrenal glands release that cortisol, the cortisol surge, that's our stress hormone. And when cortisol is continuously released, right? It's like you're in this state of chronic stress, your body says, oh, I need to respond. More cortisol. I need to respond, more cortisol. And so when that happens, then it can cause that, again, that widespread inflammation. So remember, I mentioned the pro-inflammatory response before. Now we're also seeing it due to stress. So you can see how it would cause that autoimmune disease based on different hormonal imbalances. So when the cortisol will cause a pro-inflammatory response or a heightened immune response and inflammatory response, causing immune dysregulation, meaning that autoimmune state where we're fighting against our own selves. So by finding ways to de-stress, that's really key. Mindset is so important for autoimmune conditions, and exercise, meditation, practicing self-care. You can significantly improve your autoimmune diseases, particularly thyroid health and adrenal health with adrenal fatigue, and see a drastic improvement in numbers if you're testing often for autoimmune disease, but in your overall well-being as well. So start prioritizing yourself, right? Make yourself number one and treat your downtime as a priority, because when it comes to autoimmune disease, you really can't take no for an answer. I just wanted to answer a quick question here about when will the webinar be available to rewatch? We will have it out to you by Monday. So I'll send out an email in regards to all of that. And I'll answer again all the questions at the end, but feel free to keep throwing them in the chat. But that's a good one. Okay, so let's get back to our webinar here. So what can we do? So we've been talking about all these different things. It can be a little overwhelming, but let's break it down about how we can help our hormones come into balance. So one, nutrient insufficiency. So you can do some lab work to see if you have specific nutrients out of balance, which I recommend. Now, I always recommend test, don't guess, because you don't want to be playing with the inside of your body. Your cells they're particular about what they need, especially nutrients. Different vitamins and nutrients and minerals can be thrown off balance easily if they're given the wrong thing, especially for thyroid, like I was mentioning. If you're taking iodine or too much selenium, it can throw off the whole system. So nutrient deficiencies rarely go undiagnosed because it cause severe symptoms. But I'm not talking about like an extreme insufficiency. I'm talking about a deficiency. So however, many of us have vitamin and mineral insufficiency. And so the difference in that, so let's say, for instance, you had a severe deficiency that would show up. You would be feeling extreme symptoms. But when you have an insufficiency, that means like a malabsorption issue, for instance, then it is harder to see, which is why we want to test to see how your body is absorbing. How do you have a nutrient insufficiency? And some of those common ones are iron, vitamin D, iodine, zinc, selenium. These are all super important for autoimmune diseases, B complex as well. So and all of the antioxidants, which are the ACEs, the A, C, E, selenium, and zinc. I mentioned those two already, but not all those. Also, glutathione, a huge aspect of autoimmune diseases and your immune system's ability to fight off free radicals. So boosting your resilience. How can you boost your body's resilience to immune disease? One, taking these specific supplements can be really helpful. So I mentioned the ACEs. So that's vitamin A, C, E, selenium, and zinc. And vitamin D is really important for the immune system. I always recommend, I'm always amazed that vitamin D is not tested, because I see so many patients, especially autoimmune patients, that do not have enough vitamin D. And taking that vitamin D can sometimes give them immediate results and energy and help their immune system to respond, because it's one of the ones that's needed for a proper immune response. Glutathione, like I mentioned, that can really help to support the cell membrane, help the phospholipid bilayer, help to fight off against free radicals. Really important with autoimmune disease. CoQ10, this is part of the energy of the electron transport chain. So in our body, we have ATP, we make energy from glucose. And so CoQ10 is part of a small part of that chain, and it can also give us energy. So that's a really good one to test as well and can help in autoimmune diseases. Zinc, super important for the immune system. B vitamins, like I mentioned, B vitamins, and we have lots of different ones. So you could take a B complex, or you could get tested and see specific B vitamins that could be out of balance or based on your symptoms, what you're feeling, what's going on. But in general, B vitamins give us energy. And so that's a huge component, like I mentioned, fatigue. And so that can be a really good one to start. And they're basically harmless. You can overload on them. I'm not saying that, but they are water soluble. And so you'll flush out the extra. You don't want to, of course, take too many. I'm not recommending that. That's why it's good to test. Folate, another important component, especially with methylation, and magnesium. Lots of people are finding they're deficient in magnesium, and magnesium can really help the muscles, the body to relax, help us to sleep at night, and also to help with mood and the immune system. So really important. So those are just a few of my kind of like go-tos that can really help to boost the immune system when it comes to autoimmune diseases. So also adding green vegetable juice to your diet can really boost the immune system. So that's because of chlorophyll. So chlorophyll is in the green juice. That kind of gives it that green color. And what the chlorophyll does, the major benefit is that it is an important protein compound that acts as a cell stimulator, rejuvenator, cleanser, internal healer, and antiseptic. So it's like the green powerhouse, right? So drinking some people don't like the flavor of green juice, but green juicing is really great, helps detoxify the system, especially from the autoimmune and hormonal component. But you can also take chlorophyll as a powder and mix it in too. Just making sure you're getting a really good source if you're buying chlorophyll. I don't recommend buying it like as in a capsule form. Powder and mixing it in I see much more beneficial to the body, especially mixing it with water. Have that green water, because it's going to be absorbed right into your buccal membrane, into your body. So the health benefits, like chlorophyll is basically like the green powerhouse of the planet. So taken regularly, it can really help your body from the autoimmune perspective. It increases hemoglobin in the blood. So it's going to give your blood more iron, so to speak, and really help that from that energy perspective and fatigue. It detoxifies the cells. It eliminates blood sugar problems. So a lot of times when someone's in that autoimmune and hormonal imbalance, what will happen is you'll have a constant dip in energy because the adrenal glands are trying to compensate for the fatigue. And so the adrenal glands also balance blood sugar. And so then you'll have this dip back and forth trying to balance the blood sugar. So chlorophyll actually helps balance that. So a really great addition. Reduces body odor. I see that a lot of times with autoimmune patients is that they have this strange body odor, and now they'll often say it smells like metal. And so that's a huge sign that the body is in a toxic state when you have body odor. So again, chlorophyll will help and relieve that. It relieves and heals the stomach, especially gastric ulcers. So if you have an autoimmune disease that's connected to the digestive system, fabulous thing to bring in is chlorophyll. It relieves respiratory problems like asthma and sinuses. So it opens up the breathing. It really helps to breathe in and bring oxygen into the system. It works as an antiseptic, killing bacteria, and it helps speed up the healing process. I also like to use it when someone has that bacteria and viral component, right? If you're the type of person, if you have an autoimmune disease or you don't, or you think you might, but you chronically are ill, right? You're like, oh, I had a cold this month, and then I have this happen and this happen. So a lot of times I'll bring in the chlorophyll as that component to help patients who are looking for a way to help combat the viruses and bacteria in their body or environment. It reduces inflammation. So remember that I mentioned that one huge aspect of autoimmune disease is inflammation. So we want to be taking and absorbing things that reduce that inflammation. Chlorophyll, glutathione, those are really great anti-inflammatories. Turmeric, that's another really good one. Ginger, all those can be really helpful. Just as a caveat, anytime you're going to start a new supplement, vitamin, etc., always check with your health practitioner or myself to make sure it's in alignment and there's not any contraindications. Let's see. It also improves bowel movements. So one thing about, I'm not going to go heavy into bowel movements this webinar, but think about this. So if you have a history of constipation, for example, your body is not eliminating. And remember how I talked about the layers of the onion. So what happens is that the toxins are eliminated through your bowel movements. If you have a history of constipation, and I see a lot of patients that have had constipation since they were teenagers, that build up happens in the system. Those toxins aren't released. So then your body is like living in toxic sewage. So of course your body is going to be trying to fight it with its immune cells. It's going to cause an imbalance in the system. So chlorophyll can really help get those bowels moving. It's also is really great for hemorrhoids. Sometimes when we're in that constipated state, we want to get things moving smoothly, not hardly, right? Or pushing out of the system. So chlorophyll can help with that. And it also helps to melt away toxic fat. So when we're in an environment of toxicity, our fat cells will hold on to toxins. So our cells have a phospholipid bilayer. They will hold, that's a fat cell. So those fats will hold on to the toxins. So what chlorophyll does is it comes in, you kind of think of a cleaning sponge. It comes in, it smooths around on the outer layers of the cell, helping to release those toxins from that membrane, that fat membrane, and then helping it to move out through the system. So chlorophyll is just a huge component of helping to deal with many of the signs and symptoms of autoimmune disease. So another thing is really avoiding refined sugars and refined foods. Now, those can really trigger different aspects of autoimmune disease. So if you're in an autoimmune state and or a hormonal imbalance state, then you want to make sure you're looking at your sugar intake, either doing a sugar detox or eliminating sugars altogether for a specific period of time, like at least 90 days. So what happens with sugar, one is it's basically like battery acid to your blood system, your bloodstream and your cells. It does no good. It feeds cancer cells. It changes your pH. Also, what your cells become addicted to that sugar. And I mentioned the adrenal system, the thyroid system, the HPA axis, all highly affected by sugar. So if you're having cravings, eat something that is more filling, like you could have a sweet potato, which has natural sugars, right? Eat something with natural sugars that your body is going to find satisfying. Or you could make some healthy chocolate. This week I posted a live video about making healthy chocolate with low sugar. So make something that's very low on the glycemic index to satisfy those sugar cravings. Another great thing to add in is medicinal mushrooms. So reishi and chaga specifically. So mushroom teas or powdered mushrooms are like the new superfood. You're probably seeing them in all types of places. That's because they're being widely studied for improving the immune system. They can be used as a dried mushroom, whole, or in a powdered form. You can also take them as a tincture form. They can be brewed in hot water. Some of them have a different kind of flavor. You can mix them in with coffee and tea, really helps to hide that. And there's really nothing new in using mushrooms to improve health. It's just that we're finding out more and it's being more studied. So it's being more evidence-based in that aspect. But they've been used to promote health and vitality for thousands of years in the Eastern medicine culture. And so that culture has been around for a long period of time. And so now we're just like bringing it into the Western culture. Like, oh yeah, these can really help boost the immune system. So super important there. So breathing, I'm going to do that now. I'm going to breathe. So breathing is a super important part of the immune system. And that might seem like common sense, but when we are in a state of immune compromisation or autoimmune disease, our sympathetic nervous system is triggered. That's the fight or flight. We're in, and a lot of times I'll see patients have really shallow breathing or accelerated breathing in an immune state because their body's not in a relaxed state. So immune systems are affected both by negative thought processes and stress. Okay, so our lives begin and end with each breath that we take. It's like our birthing process, and but it becomes second nature. We don't think about the breathing, and then when we're in a state of stress, that breathing is accelerated. So scientists have observed that animals know how to shake off this stress. They're like, oh, okay, that was stressful. That was fine. I'm just ready to move on to the next thing. But as humans, again, that stress kind of accumulates, and we don't have the same ability to bring ourselves back into balance based on different things. So we have a kind of like a suppressed ability to bring ourselves back in balance because we're not able to maintain that equilibrium as easily. But now you can with practice, right? So meditation, breath work, having a de-stress practice where you're doing yoga, whatever it is, journaling, any of those things to help with daily stress relief, and breathing is a big one. So some of the ways that breathing can help boost your immune system. So I really recommend breathing and bringing in a daily breathing practice. It helps reduce the stress response, which is super important when you're in a sympathetic state of an autoimmune disease, a fight or flight response. And that's basically what an autoimmune disease is. You are fighting against yourself, running from yourself, trying to heal yourself. And so breathing will help reduce that stress response, and it starves the energy from the healthy immune system. So the energy isn't engaged in the immune system in a more healthy way, so to speak. It increases your vital energy so that prana, that life force within you, is then engaged with energy, and it helps the detoxification process, helps to decrease that inflammation response, helps things to move out of the system, just like I was talking about with the chlorophyll. Remember, it accelerates the regeneration of tissue. So we need that when we're talking about autoimmune disease. We need those healthy cells to be regenerated, because what's happening when we're in a toxic state of a toxic cell, that toxic cell is replicated. So what we want the healthy cell. We want to make more of those healthy cells, and breathing helps us to do that. And it speeds up the recovery process. So a breathing practice is one of the number one things I recommend when you're in that autoimmune state and hormonal imbalance. So sleep and rest, 100% important. We're in a huge epidemic when it comes to sleep and rest. Many people don't sleep well through the night. They wake up in the night, worried, stressed, can't get back to sleep, have insomnia. They have breathing issues, all kinds of things. So our body needs regular sleep, regular healing sleep, to get into that restorative state, to allow our body to heal. Really important for autoimmune disease. And I see highly often correlated where my patients with an autoimmune disease will have issues with sleep and insomnia, especially from that pain perspective. So the aim should really be to get at least 7 hours of sleep. And if you're recovering from autoimmune disease and you feel like you need to take a nap, go for it, right? Because your body is in that restorative state. So listen and tune in to what your body needs. So again, taking a brief nap, hey, you got the thumbs up, right? It's good. You want to strengthen the immune system in that restorative state. So exercise is also really important for autoimmune conditions. It can be challenging when you're fatigued and you're having a lot of pain, that inflammatory response. So try to do things that are not going to aggravate that. But as you begin to have that exercise practice, you will regain more energy. And so daily engagement is, you have to do that some sort, because you have to get that body moving. It's really important for circulation. We have to get those toxic cells flushing out of the system, and it brings changes in your antibodies, which are part of that autoimmune response, and the white blood cells, the body's immune system that fight disease. So these proactive antibodies, or the white blood cells, circulate more rapidly and detect illness earlier than they might have before. So huge component. So exercise is key. So some final thoughts as we're going to be wrapping up today. One, research suggests hormonal fluctuation, immune polarization, and transition states together drives susceptible women over the autoimmune tipping point. So we're talking about hormonal imbalance, immune fluctuation, meaning that your immune system is triggered from all those things I mentioned before: toxicity, stress, hormonal imbalance, whether during certain times of your life. Those things together then push us, especially as women, over that tipping point into the autoimmune disease state. So what's unknown, so to speak, is if autoimmunity can be prevented in women. That's what research says, but I'm here to say 100%, right? We just have to look at the variables. We have to look deep down into the root cause of what's going on, really examine things, and from that preventative state before it's going on. That's why you want to seek out an alternative health practitioner like myself to help examine yourself or examine the body from that holistic standpoint, every aspect, the physical, the emotional, the spiritual, so you can really see what's going on before it's too late. Or if you're in that state, jump into a state of recovery, right? So though I think we'd all agree that living a healthy lifestyle and minimizing exposure to immune triggers makes good common sense for us women. We want to limit our exposure, all those things I mentioned that can shift us. So let's talk about some next steps. So one, I'm going to share my screen here. There's a couple things, and then I'm going to take some questions from you. Let's see here. I should be sharing my screen now. Yeah. Let me make this a little bigger. Oh, of course. And I did that. It did all the way. Sorry about that. Give me a moment. Da, 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 da. These are all the slides that I was talking through, and now you can see them. Okay, next steps. So this is my amazing program. I have two that are really great for autoimmune conditions. I have three, but this one is coming up in January. So I wanted to make sure you knew about it. So if you're suffering from autoimmune disease, there's two things I recommend. One, if it's thyroid specific, you jump into my thyroid program starting in January, or two, you do my detox program to really start getting the body detoxing. So my thyroid recovery program is 6 weeks and it's amazing. So if you're feeling exhausted, gaining weight, moody, just feeling crappy, you've been to all doctors, poked, prodded, tested, but nothing's really changed, right? These are the things that are signs that you're in an autoimmune state and your hormones are out of balance. So with this program, it's a 6-week program. You get 2 thyroid recovery guides that are going to talk about hormonal reset and hormone mindset. Because mindset, remember I mentioned, is that huge piece when it comes to autoimmunity. You're going to get my expert thyroid protocol. This is really going to walk you through all the things I recommend to start your body into a state of healing. There's going to be a whole component, a 21-day aspect of regain your power. So I mentioned earlier, I was going to talk about the emotional component. So when we're in that autoimmune state, specifically the thyroid, the emotional state is affected, right? The emotion, you can't separate the two. And we need to look at the emotional perspective, especially as women. We're not being given the power to speak, the power to be. And so this particular program has a component, your own power or regaining your power. And so this is part of that program. Also, you get a 30-minute visit with me, which is priceless, to discuss recommendations and labs, right? So I talk through, yeah, this is what you need to do to really, let's see if we can get you back on track quickly, figure out what's going on. You get omnivore and vegetarian recipe guides through the program to help you learn how to cook properly for the thyroid and for that particular system. Bonus handout. So going grain-free, hormones and detox, yay! Probiotics and hormones, so key for the thyroid. Teas for liver detox. We've got to get the liver detoxifying, and then thyroid balancing foods. You also get a gratitude journal and law of attraction planner. And then we meet weekly as a group, as a group gathering where we do manifestations. We talk through things about the thyroid and really help support each other. This group is a smaller group, so you'll feel that when we're working together. So the oh, it says the 30-day, it's a 6 week, actually. I changed that. And the 6 week thyroid program, it's time to reclaim your health, right? So the entire cost of this program is only $5.99. And the early bird bonus for all attendees today, you get $100 off the program plus my 5-week mind reset course, which is amazing. You're going to start really de-stressing, especially from that autoimmune component and that hormonal component, really helping your body to de-stress. You can use coupon Thyroid Power, and the program starts on January 17th. And I'll be sending a recap of all of this. And I'll also send the link for my genetic detox program. And that's a really great one to jumpstart your autoimmune or autoimmune disease, to really jumpstart your recovery. You can also make a free 15-minute appointment with me, a discovery call to discuss how I can help you. And that's a really great way for us to see, okay, what would be the best for you? So I'm here to help you with that. And I'll send that out in the recap as well. Thank you so much for everyone attending. If you need more info and education, I do wellness webinars every week, and you can go back and you can watch them. They're all on my website and on my YouTube channel, and I have the handouts that go with them. My goal is really to empower you with education. So all that info, if you go to the Learn tab on the top of my website, they're all there. Also, you follow me on Instagram. You probably found out about this webinar from there, or maybe you found out on Eventbrite. Make sure you're following me so you can find out about all the ways that I want to help you, empower you, help you feel your best. That's what it's all about. And again, listen to my podcast. It's awesome. If I do say so myself. Okay, that's a wrap. Have a good night.